Previously on Dan Teaches Pretty Basic Things About Europe to Other North Americans who probably don't know a lot about Europe. We talked about living in Scandinavia, including Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. And I did include Finland in that, but full disclosure, it turns out Finland is not officially in Scandinavia. We also talked about Central Europe, including Poland, the Czech Republic, and Slovakia. And in this video, we are going to discuss France, Spain, Portugal, and Italy, and one of my personal favorites, Germany. So let's move to France. Now, France is going to vary a lot in cost of living depending on where you choose to live, Paris obviously being the most expensive. Now, even in a city like Paris, if you're coming from North America, alcohol is probably not very expensive relative to you. So certain things in France are going to be very cheap. Like local, go buy a loaf of bread is still going to be €1, something like that. Wine is going to be very cheap, things like this. I believe the subway in Paris is €1.40. So consider right now when this video is being filmed that roughly €1 and $1 are the same. They're like 10% off, but it's not worth the calculation. So US dollar to euro is about the same. France is going to have quite a mixed group. So if you are, one of the things I'm going to talk about in this video is if you are a person of color, because there are certain parts of Europe where you're very welcome, but you might stand out or feel uncomfortable or something like that. So France, especially Paris, is not one of those places. It's a very diverse group of people from their colonies and immigration and all this stuff. And a very international city, obviously. So Paris, I think, is 20 million people. You're going to find people from all over. The rest of France, I can only assume, because I've not visited, involves more drinking, less work, and likely more wife swapping with your neighbors, as far as I know. Let's go from France and do Spain, Portugal, and Italy. And I'm grouping all these together to offend everyone. No, because they're the same, aren't they? Coming from North America, right? They're all kind of the same people. No, what I'm doing here is I'm grouping them because from a expat point of view, from a digital nomad point of view, there are a lot of similarities in terms of how the cultures are. They're the Latin cultures. They tend to be a little more laid back, very friendly. You go to Spain in the worst of the worst recession, the economic turmoil, and you go out and there will still be people packed into the bars, enjoying themselves, laughing, talking with friends, even if there's a 30% unemployment rate. All these groups, but especially the Spanish, love to party. They love to go out. There's a lot more of a family dynamic in terms of people often live at home until they move out. Like to get married, of course, when they move out. So they'll live at home until they get married. Italians are famous for being mama's boys, right? Where until they get married, someone cooks and cleans for them their whole lives. Definitely, I guess, good cultures in terms of like slowing down. France is similar to this as well, but slowing down, eating and drinking, like taking your time, having a 2-hour lunch, slowing down a bit. So if you're looking to live somewhere where you can kind of disconnect from the 50-hour or 60-hour North American work week, maybe you're trying to work on a more creative project, something like that, these countries would all be a great choice. And of course, if we want to talk sunshine, especially in the south of these countries, you're going to get pretty much year-round sunshine in most places, which is definitely a plus. If you are new to Europe, do not make the mistake I did and assume all of these countries are sunny. So northern Italy will be rainy and snowy in the winter, as can northern Spain be as well. So don't assume the entire countries are sunny, but they do have their year-round sunny spots. In terms of cost of living, you'd actually be very pleasantly surprised. It's going to vary a lot by city here. Cities like Madrid, Barcelona, Milan, Rome are going to be significantly, like upwards of twice or more as expensive as the rest of the countries. But in general, they're very affordable countries to live in. And I'm talking compared to a general North American standard. Fairly, cheap places. If you go into a smaller town or anywhere in Portugal, even Lisbon, it's going to become even more affordable. It might be a surprise, but you can live in a decent sized Spanish city or some parts of Italy or Portugal for cheaper than any of these like third world Asian destinations that Digital Nomads seem to be all about. So a lot of the cost of living is quite low. You can go and get a liter of wine at dinner for $7, $8. Things like that. Coffee might be €1, that sort of thing. So can be very, very affordable places to live. Next up is Germany. I have lived in Hamburg twice and in Berlin once. If you ask me, Hamburg is the better city, but of course I'm in the minority with that opinion. Germany really surprised me. I came over to Germany and to Hamburg. It was my first place to live in Europe after spending a few days in Lisbon. And I expected it to be kind of boring, but I went because my best friend was moving there and I thought, screw it, why not give it a shot? It blew my mind. It was so much fun. The Germans, as much as they apparently work hard, although they still work way less hours than North Americans and take way more holidays, they play hard as well. So in Hamburg, the bars and nightclubs are open to 6 a.m. There's 24-hour places, I believe. Drinking in public is legal in Germany. It was even legal on their transportation system, like their subway, until a couple years ago. I think the legal drinking age is 16 with beer and wine, 18 for hard alcohol, but yet you don't see fights, you don't see too many drunk people stumbling around. It's really an interesting thing where they are as productive as North Americans in terms of what they get done, but they have way less strict laws around drinking and partying, and yet way fewer issues with drinking, with drunkenness, with fighting, all this stuff. So it's a really interesting place. The people are going to be less openly friendly in terms of like chit chat as in North America, but part of that is culture, part of that is a language barrier if you're speaking English. But generally what I found is when you do get to know them, they're pretty friendly people. They're definitely open to foreigners. So whether that is that you are someone of color or just someone of pale whiteness like me who's coming from another country, I found Germans to be very open and welcoming. So it's fairly easy to make friends. That was at least my experience there. Cost of living might surprise you as well as being fairly cheap. Now rent is going to be higher and it's going to vary by city in terms of your transportation costs, all that sort of stuff. But food, I think, is heavily subsidized by the government. So grocery stores are really cheap. I think some of the cheapest in the world, like for wine, milk, produce, whatever stuff, is really cheap. I've made the point that if you're a homeless person, there is no better place on earth to live than Germany, because a can of beer, a half-liter can, a tall boy, costs 50 cents. But the deposit on it is 25 cents. So if you're a can collector, you only need to collect 3 cans to buy 1 beer. That means in like 30 minutes, you can have your day's worth of drinking and then go back to sleeping, which is pretty awesome. So if you are homeless and watching this, Germany is definitely your place to be. And that's funny to me, the drinking and the ratio with the beer, but it also says something about the society where they have a society that's very heavy on recycling and personal responsibility. I remember my ex-girlfriend would look at me weird when I complained about having to walk 4 blocks to recycle like brown glass or whatever, and if you didn't divide it up properly, like green glass here, brown glass here, people would look at you like you're just a bad person. You should be a good member of society. So they have that part of society, and there's tons of more examples I could get into on that, of responsibility, recycling, being progressive, taking in lots of immigrants, and on the same note, beer is 50 cents and you can drink it anywhere you want. So pretty awesome place actually, to not underestimate how great Germany is. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because in the next video I'll be covering the Baltics and the Balkans, and yes, they are different areas.